Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, and also the second story, they're both going to be related to the Masters Mr. Olympia, starting out with Jay Cutler. Now, I know it's become a little bit of a meme that Jay Cutler is going to do the Masters Olympia on the Cutler cast because he's also doing this kind of 50th birthday transformation thing where he's trying to get in the best shape of his life before he turns 50, which is coincidentally right around the time the Masters Olympia is rolling around, which is going to be August 26th and 27th of this year in Romania. But in a recent video on Jay's channel, on Jay Cutler TV, titled Building an Olympia Chest, at the very end of that video, it's like a 30-minute video, but at the very end, he takes off his shirt and he poses a little bit. And I honestly think Jay still looks really good. He still carries a pretty decent amount of muscle. And it is worth pointing out that now the Masters Olympia is 40 plus. So it's not 45 like it was in the beginning, which means Jay being closer to 50, if he were miraculously going to do it, he would be older than a lot of the guys that are probably going to jump in now that it's 40 plus, because Jay's kind of on the outside of that, where if it were 45 or maybe even 50, if that were the age cutoff, I think then that would make him more likely to compete. And look, I think a lot of people see this and they compare the physique that Jay has now to the physique that he had when he was a top competitive pro. Obviously, you're not looking at the same guy. Obviously, he's not the early 2000s Jay Cutler of really over 20 years ago now. But I think for his age, he looks incredible. He's still got really good legs. He doesn't have as aesthetic of a physique as he used to have, obviously. He doesn't carry the size that he used to carry, obviously, but he still carries a fair amount. He stays in really good shape year-round from the looks of what we get to see of him, and he looks phenomenal for a retired bodybuilder of his age, and I think that's kind of what the point of the Masters Olympia is how good can you look at this age? How good can you look past your theoretical prime? That's what the word Masters means. It means you're no longer in your prime, you're no longer at your peak, you're no longer a peak bodybuilder. So that's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for a peak Jay Cutler to compete at the Masters Olympia. They're looking for a Masters Jay Cutler. And look, honestly, they joke about it. He's probably not going to do it. And realistically, there's not a lot of upside for him to do it. It's $229,000 split between 10 divisions. I'm assuming they're paying the top 5 in each division. So $229,000 theoretically split 50 ways for this competition. There's not much financial incentive for Jay to do it. But on the other side of that, Jay is very business savvy. He knows how to build a brand. He knows what he's doing with social media. And being one of the older guys in the space, he is 50 years old, or almost 50. He's a lot older than most people that are social media influencer bodybuilder types. But he seems to really know how to build and sustain his brand on social media. And I also think that there's a part of Jay Cutler that looks at this Masters Olympia as an opportunity. Because Jay is already crazy fan favorite. He's one of the most interactive guys. He's at every meet and greet talking to fans, interacting, engaging on social media. To the fans, he's an endearing, charming, down-to-earth guy. And what would be more endearing, charming, giving the fans what they want than for him to jump in the Masters Olympia, even though it really offers him no upside, except for the fact that the fans would love to see it. I think in the back of his mind, Jay probably knows that. He knows, look, I don't need the money. I don't need the title. It doesn't even matter to him if he wins a Masters Olympia. It doesn't. But I know in the back of Jay's mind, he knows that the fans would go crazy if he came back after, I guess it's been 10 years now since he competed, and came back, they got to see him on stage again. It would be great content, which he seems to be very engaging with. It would make the fans go crazy, which seems to be something he enjoys doing. The prize money is just a little cherry on top. It's probably not going to be anything that would even really matter to Jay or move the needle for him at all. But also, there's probably just that little itch that constantly nags him that he could finally scratch of competing again. And I'm sure every retired pro bodybuilder probably gets that itch when they watch the Arnold Classic, when they watch the Olympia, and they see these crazy, competitive, awesome lineups. In the back of their mind, they're probably thinking, I got that itch to compete again. If I were up there on stage, how would I look against these guys in my prime? And I say all this to say, like, look, Jay is at the beginning of his, he's still doing this transformation. He wants to get in really good shape before he turns 50. And he's really towards the beginning of that transformation still. So I still say that what we're seeing here, as impressive as I think it is it's going to be even more impressive as we get closer and closer to the Olympia, the Masters Olympia in Romania. So why not just jump in it just for fun? Now, one guy that we just got confirmation is doing it, Hidetada Yamagishi. So I think this is actually pretty cool, and he recently said this on an episode on Rich Gaspari's podcast, who was a longtime sponsor of Hidetada, and he confirmed that he submitted his application to compete at the Masters Olympia. Now, granted, he also says there it is an invitational. So the Masters Olympia is kind of like the Arnold Classic in the fact that they select who they want to compete there. They're going to pick the number of competitors that they want. They're going to go through the application, say yes or no, and they are going to decide what this lineup is going to look like. So even though Hidetada says he submitted the application, he's planning on doing it, he's prepping on doing it, he's committed to doing it, it doesn't mean for sure he's guaranteed to be at that show. But he says he has intended, or he has, submitted his intent to do it, and he's prepping for it. And I wanted to talk about this after the Jay Cutler story because Hidetada is the same age as Jay Cutler. He's 49, and I think he's going to be 50 or over 50. I think he turns 50 in June. So he's going to be 50 when the Masters Olympia rolls around. And he had a great career. He had a really accomplished career, but not to the extent that Jay did. So again, he's the same age as Jay. Less accolades. He's doing the Masters Olympia. He's from the same era as Jay, and he's successful, similar to Jay. I mean, he owns a gym. He owns his own business. He's a successful retired bodybuilder. He probably doesn't have a whole lot of financial upside to doing it, but a pretty content-heavy upside to doing it. He's won the Arnold Classic in the 212. I mean, he had a decent career. He had a lot of pro wins. He had some decent open Olympia placings. He was a top 10 Olympian a few times. I think his best placing at the Olympia was 9th, I want to say, as far as the Open Olympia, and that was in 2009. And then he would later switch to 212, and I don't think we've seen him compete. Well, he did compete as recently as 2020, so he competed right before the pandemic. And in the 212 Olympia in 2020, he placed 14th. So now switching to Open, it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do at this Masters Olympia. And I think we're going to see a lot of interesting names, honestly. When this Masters Olympia lineup came out, or when this Masters Olympia announcement came out that there was going to be another one, we haven't had one since 2012, I initially was skeptical. We've had a lot of bodybuilders with health issues. We've had a lot of bodybuilders dying, and it didn't seem like a great idea to bring back, or maybe just not great timing, to bring back the Masters Olympia in light of all these events. A lot of bad stuff is happening to bodybuilders health-wise, and as you get older, there's not really a whole lot of incentive to come back in your 40s or 50s and step back on a bodybuilding stage, which is going to be the case for probably the majority of the guys that are going to be competing in the show. It's probably not going to be a lot of active pros that are 40 plus, 45 plus, or 50. It's probably going to be a majority retired guys, and it is going to be taxing on their health. But the more guys that I see talk about this, and the more discussion I see stir around this, and the more guys that express interest and intent and commit to compete, I'm starting to kind of have a feeling that we might get to see something special. Because again, this is the first Masters Olympia we've seen in over a decade. So there could be a lot of guys that are retired and have wanted to make a comeback and wanted to scratch that competitive itch again, that have been waiting for a moment like this, that could come out of the woodwork and do this show. And as we're seeing more guys talk about it, I really just have this feeling that in the back of my mind, I really think this could turn out to be a crazy, crazy show, where realistically we could see things happen like a Jay Cutler comeback. Kevin Levrone, he's 50 plus. He's doing like a transformation thing right now where he's getting in better shape. We could see, I just feel like we're going to see something crazy happen in Romania. And Hidetada, honestly, he's a guy that I'm excited to see back on stage. I loved Hidetada when I first got into bodybuilding. When I grew up and I was going to those early Arnold Classics in like 2008, 2009, 2010, he was always at that Gaspari booth. He was always in the magazines. He was always in the ads for the Super Pump pre-workout. He was one of those guys when I first got introduced to what bodybuilding is, and I started going to the gym back when I was 15 or 16, however old I was in 2008. He was one of the bodybuilders that was really at the forefront of the scene, and I'm excited to see him back on stage, man. It's kind of nostalgic for me to see these guys still in shape, training, and wanting to compete. But look, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think we're going to see Jay Cutler back on stage next to Hidetada Yamagishi at the Masters Olympia 2023? Let me know in the comments down below. So next up in the news, I want to talk about Larry Wheels a little bit here. So he posted a video on his YouTube channel saying, preparing for my first classic bodybuilding show. So he confirms here that he is looking to pursue classic physique. He introduces his new coach, Ryan, who apparently earned a pro card for Breon Ainsley. I did not know that. So he's got a coach. He's actually, pretty much expressing here and confirming that he wants to pursue classic. He said, back in 2018, which is wild, that this was the last time Larry Wheels stepped on a bodybuilding stage. 2018 was 5 years ago. It's insane to me that it's been 5 years since we saw Larry compete in bodybuilding. I remember that like it was yesterday, and it's crazy to me that half a decade has gone by since we saw Larry Wheels on stage for open bodybuilding. But he talks about when he was on stage back then, how open bodybuilding just didn't feel like it was for him. He didn't really enjoy it. He didn't enjoy the poses specifically. And he said he's always kind of been drawn to classic physique. He's always kind of been drawn to the posing. And that's why you see him placing such an emphasis now on his channel with making sure that he works on his posing. And you can see that in this video here. And you can see it in a video right before the Arnold Classic. He was posing for like half an hour with William Bonac and Andrew Jacked, and I got to respect that. I've also seen videos of him posing with like Sergio Oliva Jr. and some other guys too, and he seems to be placing a pretty heavy emphasis on that, which I respect. And I got to say, another thing that I really respect about Larry is that he really does keep it interesting for his audience. He has tried everything, whether it was powerlifting, strongman, arm wrestling, bodybuilding, classic physique. Larry Wheels really deserves the position that he's in, and kind of influencer too. You can add all those things and then add influencer on top of that. He really does put in the work. He really does try to entertain his fan base, and he really does push it as hard as he can. I mean, you can see when he talks about classic physique and talks about his interest in it, and he posts all these videos working on his posing with the best of the best, because he thinks that's what's important in classic. You've got to respect that. Larry Wheels really does take the time to really become the best, or at least try to become the best at anything he attempts. He doesn't half-ass any of these things. Like I said, whether it's strongman, bodybuilding, powerlifting, classic physique, he really goes full throttle at all of them, and I got to respect that. And I think it's something that deserves a little bit of a commendation there. And to be completely honest, like I've said before, I think he can earn a pro card. I think Larry Wheels being a taller guy, it certainly seems like that shift in classic physique right now is really putting the advantage in favor of the taller guys, because realistically, they can be heavier. And the shorter guys seem to be at a disadvantage. We've seen a lot of issues lately with shorter guys missing weight, shorter guys missing their peak, shorter guys not being able to really come in as full as they could be, or maybe coming in too flat because they're really worried about making weight. Whereas these taller guys in classic seem to be more successful because they got a little bit more lax with the weight limit the taller they are. And Larry's a taller guy. He's over 6 foot. And even though typically, powerlifting Larry, strongman Larry, is like a 300-pound guy, I think still, even if he sheds off some of that muscle and comes in downsized for classic physique, which he's going to have to because he's not going to be able to weigh 300 pounds on stage, I think it's more like between 220 and 230 for his height, depending on how tall exactly he is. I think he's 6 foot to 6'1". But he's obviously going to have to shed off some muscle if he's still weighing anything close to that. But I really think he's still going to have an advantage being a taller guy. He's got a ton of muscle. He's Larry Wheels. He's not like a small guy. He can hit a vacuum pose. He's got a decent amount of muscle. He's got some good size. He's got a good structure. I think the only thing that I really notice as far as Larry having a weak point, I would say more detail in his back. And I would say his lower body needs more size. I think his legs are clearly, for a pro, they would be undersized. But if we're talking about Larry Wheels at an amateur classic physique show, I don't think he would have any problem winning an amateur classic show. I think it would be tough for him to earn a pro card, but I do think it's possible, maybe even probable. But then if we talk about Larry Wheels potentially on the Olympia stage, like he discussed in this video, I think there would be a lot of work that needs to be done for him to be even a factor at the Olympia, or to be a factor winning a pro show, to be completely honest. I think the lower body is something he really would need to work on for that. But honestly, as far as him pursuing classic for content and to achieve something, I do think he's got a shot at earning a pro card. I really do. I do think he's got a shot at being a really, really, really competitive amateur, and I don't think he would be a flop as a classic physique guy. I mean, he was nationally qualified as an open bodybuilder. He made it to nationals. I don't think that's anything, to be ashamed of. I think he can do that in classic and probably do better. I think that's the gist of what I want to get across to you guys. I think he's better suited for classic than open bodybuilding, being a taller guy. And I do believe Larry will do better in classic than he did in open bodybuilding. I think we're going to see something cool. But I do still think it's really going to come down to the lower body and the back detail and density. Now, the final story that I want to talk about today is Chris Bumstead's CBum. So Chris Bumstead has got to be one of the biggest names in bodybuilding and fitness to ever exist. Maybe I would really put him in a caliber of like Arnold Schwarzenegger in terms of just sheer fame and notoriety. As far as a bodybuilder that everybody like across generations and across demographics knows about, like there's guys that have nothing to do with fitness that know who Chris Bumstead is. And a testament to that is Chris Bumstead is in LA right now. He was on one of Bradley Martin's YouTube videos today. And it looks like he's filming an episode for the Nelk podcast, which is one of the biggest podcasts in the world. And I also heard a rumor that while he's there, he's going to be going on Impaulsive as well. So two of the biggest kind of social media space podcasts. You've got Logan Paul doing Impaulsive, who's one of the biggest YouTubers / Vine stars of all time. And then you've got the Nelk boys over on the Nelk podcast, which the Full Send podcast, I think is what they call it, which I don't really watch a whole lot of. I probably watch more Impaulsive than that. But he is making real significant, like mainstream or as close to mainstream moves as we've seen from a big name in bodybuilding in a really long time. And I think we really have to, point out the star power that Chris Bumstead has. I mean, this guy on Instagram alone has 16.4 million followers. That's more than any active IFBB pro that you can point out. To put that in perspective, that's only 7 million less followers than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Big Ramy has less than 5 million followers, so Chris has way more than that. And your current Mr. Olympia, Hidetada, has 3.9 million followers, so Chris has 4 times the following that Hidetada has. And I just point this out to say I'm so fascinated to see what the future holds for Chris Bumstead, because I think he's really the first guy in a very long time to outgrow the Olympia title. I honestly say this, and I honestly think this. I think Chris is more valuable to the Mr. Olympia than the Mr. Olympia is to Chris. I think it's more valuable for Chris to show up to the Olympia and compete to the Olympia than it is for Chris to win that title for him. Because at this point, Chris would continue to be Chris Bumstead whether or not he competes, whether or not he wins another title. People will still watch, people will still follow. He's still going to be CBum. But I think if Chris doesn't compete in the classic physique Olympia, even with Ramon Dino, even with Urs Kalsinski, even with some of these bigger names, I think the prestige of that competition, if Chris Bumstead retires today and doesn't come back at the Olympia this year, it drops significantly. But I think if Chris doesn't compete and doesn't come back this year, I don't really think it hurts him much at all. And it's just interesting to observe these moves that he's making, because we haven't really seen something like this from a top IFBB pro in a very long time. And again, I would say maybe since Arnold have we seen a guy really transcend bodybuilding, transcend competing. And Chris is really doing that, whether he realizes it or not. He is like the biggest factor in bodybuilding right now, and he's not even a bodybuilder. He's classic physique, technically. I didn't mean to say he's not a bodybuilder. You guys know what I mean. He's not an open bodybuilder. He's a classic physique bodybuilder. But what do you guys make of this? And my question to you guys is, what do you think the future holds for a guy like Chris Bumstead? Is he a guy that's going to be in movies? Is he a guy that's going to be in TV shows? Is he just going to be a massive social media influencer? Because realistically, how many more years is he going to continue to fend off Ramon Dino, Urs Kalsinski? You could still talk about Terrence Ruffin. How many years is he going to continue to win the title? 5 more? And he's only going to be in his early 30s? If he wins 5 more titles, he would be 9-time champ. and he would still be like 34, 33 by the time it's over and have his whole career ahead of him. So what do you guys think the future holds for Chris Bumstead? Let me know in the comments below. That's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I know I haven't posted as many videos lately. There's really just not a whole lot going on in bodybuilding, so I've been trying to just use this time to take a little bit of a break. But if you enjoy the videos and you like watching them, make sure you like this one and subscribe. And I'll see those likes, I'll see those subscriptions, and I'll try to post a little bit more often and squeeze a little bit more lemonade out of those lemons that Bodybuilding News is giving us right now, because we don't have a lot to go off of. But thank you guys for watching. As always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.